I think there may be only two groups in the United States that actually can understand each other. One, black young people. Two, the police. They literally are having and describing the same experience. The police say they feel vulnerable.
The police officers that I've talked to that protect and serve in this area who were on the scene last night, they were echoing from last night, we feel like we are at war. We feel like people want to kill us.
That's exactly what the kids in Black Lives Matter are saying, that they feel vulnerable.
Our people, police, who are supposed to serve and protect us, are the ones that are killing us off.
You look at what happened with Dylan Roof, who was a white racist and shot up all of those African American parishioners. Open season, it felt like, if you were African American, for white racists with guns to shoot up people. You look at what just happened in Dallas. African American filled with racial hatred goes and gets a gun, and he shoots up a bunch of police officers. They feel like it's open season. Well, hold on a second. If to both sides, it seems that the world is misunderstanding them, it's a good time to say, you know what, let me open my heart up a little bit and listen to the pain of the law enforcement community. Listen to their fear. Listen to their sense of being labeled and wronged and misunderstood. Or let me listen to those African American kids. They can't take off their badge, they can't take off their uniform, but they still feel like they've got a target on their back because of their skin color. Maybe that's a reason for them to actually have some common ground. We can actually, rather than turning on each other, turn to each other. Instead of coming apart, we can come together, because there's now enough pain in both communities that we should be able to understand each other.
Finding common ground. Can we do it? Instead of turning on each other, can we turn towards each other? I had a related conversation with a couple members of our church this past week. We sort of covered the current gambit from the racial divide in our nation, the lack of trust between our youth and our law enforcement, Second Amendment rights, weapons legislation. And even though we were divided on all our opinions, we were just talking about how to address these issues. We were united in the belief that if good folk, good people were willing, they could sit down and find this common ground. Instead of blaming each other, instead of blaming the other side, the left or the right, instead of blaming police officers or black youth, instead of blaming Republicans or Democrats, we came away blaming the silent middle. Those of us who allow the conversation to be manipulated by the radical fringes. Those of us who allow the voices of hate and violence not only to dominate the airwaves, but to silence any attempt at finding the common ground that he was talking about. Where are the voices of justice and kindness and humility? I still believe that a majority of people are moral and kind. It's just that we end up sitting back and not speaking, allowing all this hatred, all this violence to go unchecked. With all that's going on in our lives and the world around us, how should we make things right with God? My commentary for this week: does anything suffice to move God to accept me? Particularly when I've defied God, but yet I repented and I wish to return closer in relationship to God. How do I do that? Does God want any of our stuff, our accomplishments? Does God need any of our college degrees or our political affiliations? From our story this morning, it says that God simply wants a relationship. The first question we need to ask is, do we want a relationship with God and with each other? We talk about that a whole bunch, but then we just skip on over it as if the answer is obvious. Well, it's no longer quite so obvious. See, if the answer is no, if we don't want a relationship with God and with each other, then the rest of the questions don't matter. If you don't care how you relate to God or your neighbors, then you can live however you want to. But if you really do want to be loved and cared for, if you really do want that relationship with God, family and friends, neighbors, then what changes are you willing to make? This whole book of Micah, that question comes back over and over again. So you don't want that. What are you willing to do to make it right, to make it good? People's questions were preoccupied, my commentary says, with what they could do to please God through their religious ceremonies and rituals. Micah is in good company when he clearly states that God doesn't care about any of that. God's more interested in the way we live our daily lives than God is about our worship services. Everything about our faith hinges on our willingness, our desire to accept this grace, to accept this love, to grow in our relationship with God. So you've already been told what to do, but how do we do it? You see, to do justice is more than stating your opinion on some editorial page or getting the best political bumper sticker. Doing justice is about working to help and care for folks, making the world a better and more just society. And we do that in different ways. Halifax Urban Ministry, Silver Sands, our Hope Garden, all that we do here. Hundreds, thousands probably, little ways. The challenge is still to take that next step, to understand the underlying issues, right? To address those systemic problems. Why is there hate and mistrust in our world today? How can we find common ground? Doing justice is about working to change the fabric of our society for the better. Fairness, equality for all. Love, kindness. Again, this is an act. It's not about doing things begrudgingly out of duty. It's doing things out of love for one another. And for me, this core of kindness simply says that you value the other. You respect the other. Wanting to know, wanting to understand, trying to find that common ground again, listening, hearing stories. And then willing to walk humbly with God. Put a lot of emphasis on this word humble, and that's good. To be careful, to be circumspect, prudent, wise. But for me, the action word is to walk. On a good day, you might walk humbly with God. On other days, you might walk a little uptight or arrogant. Still, you're trying. You're walking. You're walking. You're doing your best to walk with God. And certainly that's better than walking with the polarizing fringe elements of our society. So where are these folks? That's what God was asking 2,500 years ago. Where are these people? Because I don't see them. Who's willing to do justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly with our God? Where's the silent middle in our day? When will we be willing to make these commands a priority in our lives? Because you know what? Folks are waiting. Police officers right here in our own community, they're waiting. Young folks of all races, they're waiting. And I guess more importantly, the Lord our God's waiting. I invite you to pray with me. Gracious Lord, it seems more and more common that we have to come before you in a state of prayerful confession. Confessing that our world is spinning out of control. Yes, there are glimpses of grace. Yes, you are full of mercy and love and kindness and justice. But time and time again, we allow the evil and hate to take control of our society. Help us to listen. Give us the strength to do these simple things. Remind us once again what it means to do justice, to love what is kind and good. Help us, O Lord, to walk with you each and every day. Amen.